Have you ever found yourself wide awake around 3 a.m., staring into the darkness and wondering, why now? You're not anxious. You're not upset. You're just alert. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many older adults experience this quiet interruption in the middle of the night, and while it may seem like a problem, it's often a reflection of natural changes in your body, mind, and daily rhythm. Today, we're going to explore 5 surprising, and often overlooked, reasons why you might be waking up at 3 a.m., and what you can do about it. 1. Emotional and psychological restlessness. Sometimes, the reason we wake up at 3 a.m. has less to do with physical discomfort and more to do with what's quietly stirring inside the heart. As we grow older, life slows down just enough for the mind to catch up. And in the stillness of those early hours, when the world is asleep and the distractions are gone, something inside us begins to speak. It's not always a loud or urgent voice. In fact, it's usually soft, a whisper of a thought, a flicker of a memory, a gentle ache from something unresolved. Maybe it's a conversation we never had, a loss we never fully grieved, a decision we still wonder about. These emotional echoes, long buried beneath years of busyness, begin to rise to the surface when life becomes quieter. This restlessness isn't the same as the anxiety many experience in youth. It's deeper, more reflective. It doesn't scream, it hums. It lingers not in panic, but in longing. A longing to understand, to process, to reconnect. And the early morning hours become a kind of sacred space where the soul, not the schedule, finally takes the lead. Take someone like Evelyn, who lost her sister years ago. During the day, she's active, volunteering, calling her children, reading books. But at 3:15 a.m., her eyes open, and her mind drifts to memories of childhood laughter, arguments left unresolved, and the silence that came after. It's not insomnia, it's remembrance. For many older adults, this quiet mental activity becomes a nightly ritual. It can feel like something is broken, like the body isn't cooperating. But in truth, it's the heart doing what it does best, holding space for meaning, connection, and reflection. There's beauty in that, and there's also relief in knowing you're not alone. This emotional restlessness is not a flaw. It's a sign of a mind still growing, still working through the layers of a life fully lived. If this sounds familiar, know that there are gentle ways to meet it. A bedtime journal, soothing music, a letter to a loved one, even if it's never sent. These quiet rituals don't fix the restlessness, they honor it, and sometimes, that's all the heart needs to settle once again into peace. 2. Lifestyle habits that quietly shift your sleep rhythm. Sometimes, it's not a dramatic event or illness that disrupts our sleep. It's the small, unnoticed shifts in how we live each day. Habits so subtle we barely recognize them as the cause. Yet over time, they can gently nudge our body clock out of sync, leaving us wide awake in the middle of the night, wondering what changed. Think about it. As we age, our daily routine naturally adjusts. We may start eating dinner earlier, skipping evening walks, or spending more time indoors. Maybe we've cut back on exercise, or the days have grown quieter, with fewer responsibilities and less stimulation. All of these changes, while perfectly reasonable, send quiet signals to our internal clock, sometimes telling it that bedtime is sooner than it really is. Take Walter, for example. A retired teacher, he enjoyed his peaceful evenings reading and sipping tea. But slowly, without even realizing it, he started falling asleep right after dinner in his favorite chair. At first, it felt comforting. But before long, he found himself wide awake at 3 a.m., confused and frustrated. It wasn't until he looked closely at his routine that he saw what had happened. His natural sleep window had shifted. These subtle lifestyle patterns act like cues to the brain. Bright screens at night. Afternoon naps. Long periods of inactivity. They tell your body it's time to wind down, even if the clock says otherwise. And once that rhythm moves earlier, waking in the middle of the night becomes almost inevitable. But the good news is that this cycle can be gently readjusted. Small, intentional changes, like adding a 15-minute walk in the late afternoon, using brighter lights in the evening, or avoiding naps after dinner, can help recalibrate your internal clock. You don't need to overhaul your life. You just need to bring a little more awareness to the rhythm of your day. The human body thrives on routine. It listens, even when we're not paying attention, and by becoming more mindful of our daily habits, we can guide it back toward a healthier, more restful pattern of sleep. Because sometimes, it's not about fixing what's broken. It's about tuning in to what your body's been quietly trying to tell you all along. 3. The silent weight of unfinished life chapters. There's a particular kind of stillness that arrives in the quiet hours before dawn, when the world is hushed, and the only sound is the soft breath of your own thoughts. In that silence, something unexpected can surface, the weight of moments that never fully ended. These are the unfinished life chapters we carry. The conversations never had. The forgiveness never spoken. The dreams that quietly faded, not with a bang but with the passage of time. As we grow older, these echoes become clearer, not because we're clinging to the past, but because time finally gives us the space to listen. Imagine Eleanor, a 72-year-old woman who spent most of her life caring for others. She raised her children, supported her husband's career, and looked after aging parents. But now, when she wakes at 3 a.m., her mind drifts to the painting class she once dreamed of taking, or the letter she never sent to an old friend. It's not regret that visits her, but a quiet sense of incompletion. A soft ache for the parts of herself that were put on hold. These early morning hours are when the heart speaks most honestly. When the roles and responsibilities fall away, and you're left with yourself, and the unanswered parts of your own story. Sometimes it's grief that hasn't found words. Sometimes it's hope that still flickers, waiting for a chance to be seen again. This isn't something that needs to be fixed, it needs to be heard. You are not broken for feeling this way. You're human. And carrying unfinished chapters is part of a life deeply lived. So what can you do in those moments? Sometimes, all it takes is writing a note, not to send, but to release the weight. Or allowing yourself to finally speak your truth in a journal, to acknowledge what still lingers. Even lighting a candle, saying a name, or picking up a forgotten passion can be an act of quiet healing. Because even if the chapter was never finished, you still hold the pen. And maybe the real gift of these sleepless nights isn't just rest, but the chance to reconnect with the parts of yourself that are still waiting, patiently, to be remembered, honored, and set free. 4. Physical discomfort and health-related interruptions. In the soft stillness of early morning, when the world is cloaked in darkness and silence, many older adults find themselves staring at the ceiling. Not because they've chosen to wake, but because their bodies have made the decision for them. Physical discomfort becomes more common with age. It's not always dramatic pain that disrupts sleep. Often, it's a subtle ache in the hip, a tightness in the back, or a dry throat begging for water. These interruptions may seem minor during the day, but at 3 a.m., when the body is supposed to rest, they become magnified, like whispers that turn into shouts in the quiet of night. Take James, for example, a retired teacher who never used to think twice about sleep. Now in his late 60s, he often wakes up due to the pressure in his bladder or the tingling in his legs that seems to start right as he lies down. At first, he dismissed it as just getting older. But as the pattern continued, he began to notice how his sleep was becoming fragmented, interrupted not by dreams, but by reminders that his body was changing. What's important to understand is that this isn't a failure. It's a signal. As we age, changes in circulation, joint health, digestion, and even temperature regulation can quietly disturb sleep. Sometimes the mattress feels too hard, or a pillow no longer offers the right support. Acid reflux may creep in during the night, or chronic conditions like arthritis and diabetes make their presence known in the form of restlessness. These health-related wake-ups are not always within our control, but how we respond to them is. Instead of lying awake in frustration, many find comfort in small acts of care. Adjusting the sleep environment, with better cushions, cooler air, or even a calming nighttime stretch, can make a difference. Keeping a glass of water nearby, managing evening meals, or simply shifting bedtime routines to accommodate what the body now needs can gently ease these interruptions. Because sometimes, the most compassionate thing we can do is listen, not just to our minds, but to our bodies, too. And when we do, sleep may not return immediately, but comfort might. And that, too, is a kind of rest. 5. Changes in melatonin and sleep hormones. As we grow older, something quiet but powerful begins to shift deep within us. A change that isn't seen, but deeply felt. The natural decline of melatonin and other sleep-related hormones. Melatonin is often called the sleep hormone. It's released by the brain in response to darkness, sending a gentle message to the body that it's time to wind down. In youth, this system works like clockwork. The sun sets, melatonin rises, and we drift into rest almost effortlessly. But with age, that rhythm starts to blur. For many older adults, the production of melatonin gradually diminishes. The body still knows it needs sleep, but the signals that once rang like a bell now whisper. Sleep becomes lighter. Wake-ups happen more often. And staying asleep until morning becomes less predictable. It's not just melatonin, either. Other hormones like cortisol, which regulates stress and energy, also shift, often becoming more active earlier in the morning. This hormonal reshuffling nudges the body out of rest before the night feels complete. Imagine someone like Diane, a former nurse who once worked long night shifts with no trouble. Now retired, she finds herself waking up at 3:30 a.m., her mind alert but her body still tired. No noise, no worries, just a quiet interruption she can't explain. For a while, she blamed herself. Was it something she ate? Did she nap too long? But the truth was simpler. Her biology had changed, and it was asking for something different. What makes this so tricky is how invisible it all feels. We don't see our hormones changing. We just feel the results: disrupted sleep, foggy mornings, and a sense that our body is on a different schedule than our mind. But here's the good news. Even with these changes, we're not helpless. Soft lighting in the evening, consistent wake-up times, and reducing screen exposure before bed can help recalibrate melatonin's rhythm. Some even find gentle melatonin supplements, with a doctor's guidance, to be supportive. The body still wants to sleep. It still remembers how. It just needs a little help tuning back into the signals that once came naturally. And when we respond with patience and care, the rhythm may not return exactly as before, but it will return in a form that honors where we are now. 6. Shifted sleep cycle. The advanced sleep phase. Sometimes, the body begins to whisper long before the world has gone quiet. You might find yourself yawning before the evening news ends, your eyes growing heavy not at midnight, but at 8 p.m. and when the rest of the world is still wrapped in darkness, you're wide awake, staring at the ceiling at 3 o'clock or 4 a.m., wondering what changed. What you're experiencing is something called advanced sleep phase syndrome, a subtle, age-related shift in the body's internal clock, or circadian rhythm. It's not insomnia. It's not anxiety. It's simply that your body now wants to sleep, and wake, earlier than it used to. For older adults, this shift can be confusing and even distressing. Imagine someone like Harold, a retired teacher who spent decades waking up at 6:30 a.m. Now, in his late 70s, he finds himself turning in by 7:30 at night and opening his eyes just after 3 o'clock in the morning. At first, he tried staying up later, forcing himself to stay awake in front of the television. But his body wasn't cooperating. Sleep came early, and so did the morning. This natural shift happens because, with age, the brain's suprachiasmatic nucleus, the part responsible for regulating circadian rhythms, becomes less responsive to light cues and less precise overall. As a result, melatonin is released earlier in the evening, prompting sleepiness sooner, and cortisol peaks earlier in the morning, waking the body before it feels ready. What makes this particularly challenging is how it affects quality of life. You may start missing out on evening activities or feel isolated because your schedule no longer matches your loved ones. And waking early, while the world is still sleeping, can feel lonely and frustrating. But there is hope. With gentle lifestyle changes, like taking short walks in bright morning light, reducing bright lights in the evening, and avoiding long daytime naps, you can help nudge your body clock closer to your ideal rhythm. You don't need to fight your biology. You just need to work with it. Your sleep cycle may have shifted, but that doesn't mean restful, refreshing sleep is out of reach. It's simply arriving on a new schedule, one that, with awareness and care, you can still embrace. 7. Spiritual and existential awakening at 3 a.m. There's something hauntingly beautiful about waking at 3 a.m. When the world is silent, the air is still, and time itself seems suspended. For some, this early hour isn't just about disrupted sleep. It's about something deeper. A stirring. A quiet pull from within. A whisper of the soul. As we grow older, life begins to slow down just enough to give space for reflection. And often, that reflection arrives in the stillness of the night. You may wake suddenly, not from noise or discomfort, but from a feeling, like something within you is reaching out, asking to be heard. This is not just restlessness. It's something more sacred, a spiritual or existential awakening. At 3 a.m., there are no distractions. No appointments. No errands. Just the quiet hum of your thoughts and the echo of questions that once lived buried beneath the surface. Who am I now? What has my life meant? What remains undone? What do I believe about what comes next? For many older adults, these moments feel like a nudge from the universe, a reminder that while the body is aging, the spirit is still expanding. You've spent a lifetime building, giving, surviving. And now, something inside you wants to make sense of it all. To find peace. To feel connected, not just to people, but to something greater. Take someone like Edward, a widower in his early 80s. He never considered himself spiritual. But recently, he began waking up in the early hours with a quiet yearning. Not fear. Not confusion. Just a deep sense that there was more to explore, within himself and beyond. He started journaling. Reading poems. Sitting quietly by the window and letting his thoughts drift like clouds. In those moments, he wasn't just passing time, he was awakening to a part of himself he'd never fully met. This kind of awakening is not uncommon. As the pace of life slows, the heart and soul step forward. And sometimes, they choose 3 a.m. to speak. So if you wake in the darkness and feel a quiet call, don't dismiss it. You're not broken, you're evolving. The soul, like the dawn, doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes, it comes gently, and all it asks is that you listen. 8. Bonus insight. The power of awareness and acceptance. There comes a point in life when the goal is no longer to fix everything, but to understand it. And sometimes, that quiet moment at 3 a.m. isn't asking for a solution. It's asking for awareness. For acceptance. When you wake in the middle of the night, again, your first instinct might be frustration. Why now? Why again? What's wrong with me? But what if nothing's wrong? What if this moment is an invitation, not a malfunction? The older we get, the more complex our sleep becomes. It's layered, with memories, with emotion, with physical change. And while it's natural to seek ways to sleep better, it's just as important to understand and accept what's happening. Because sometimes, the most powerful shift isn't external, it's internal. This is where awareness becomes healing. Imagine waking at 3:17 a.m. Instead of fighting it, you sit up, breathe deeply, and simply observe what's present. You notice the silence. You feel the weight of your body. You become aware of your thoughts, not judging, just witnessing. And in that awareness, something unexpected happens, the pressure fades. The shame softens. You're no longer trapped in a loop of what's wrong. You've stepped into a moment of what is. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It means choosing to meet your experience with kindness, not resistance. It means understanding that being awake in the night doesn't make you broken, it makes you human. Take Marianne, 76, who spent years frustrated by her 3 a.m. wake-ups. Then one night, she decided not to fight it. She got up, made tea, sat quietly, and watched the moonlight through her window. She felt peace. Not because her sleep was fixed, but because she stopped punishing herself for being awake. She found grace in the stillness. That's the power of awareness. It brings calm. And that calm, paradoxically, often invites sleep back more gently than any pill or trick. So if you find yourself staring into the darkness, remember, the goal isn't always to change the moment. Sometimes, the goal is simply to be with it. To breathe. To notice. To accept. Because healing often begins, not when everything is perfect, but when you stop needing it to be. As we wrap up this video, take a moment to reflect. Which part resonated most with you? Was it the shift in your internal clock? The quiet physical nudges from your body? Or perhaps something deeper, an emotional rhythm only revealed in the stillness of night? No matter what the cause, remember this. Waking up at 3 a.m. doesn't mean something is wrong. It means your body and mind are still adapting, still responding, still deeply alive. With insight comes understanding. And with understanding comes peace. So if you've recognized yourself in any of these 5 reasons today, know this: you're not just aging. You're evolving. And that evolution holds wisdom, softness, and the chance to care for yourself more intentionally than ever before. Thank you for joining us. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. And in the comments below, tell me, what did you learn today, and how will you use it in your life? We'd love to hear from you. Your thoughts inspire us as much as we hope to inspire you. Until next time, sleep well, stay kind, and listen to what your body is gently trying to say.